You inherit $40,000 from your distant uncle. Take the next ladder. Oh my God. I'm enjoying this ride.
I can tell who designed this game. Your big brother was shot.
Well.
Wow, Jesus.
Welcome back to another episode of the Future of Work Weekly Report, where we bring the most relevant topics to the table, but always with a twist. This week's episode is about a major debate that's been heating up in the workforce: merit-based hiring versus DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion. Now, we know what you're thinking. Isn't merit-based supposed to be the best way to hire? Isn't DEI just a buzzword? Well, we're here to tell you it's more complex than that, and the real issue might not be what you think. Today, we're going to explore the dark side of meritocracy and why DEI isn't just about tokenism, and the systemic problems that have skewed the entire hiring process. Trust me, this is going to get interesting, especially with some of the hottest headlines that bring these two sides into sharp focus. So let's get into it. Let's break down the meritocracy myth. This idea that hiring based on merit means the best candidate always gets the job. It sounds perfect, right? But here's the kicker. Merit is subjective. It's not this pure objective measure that many people think it is. We all know that unconscious bias can play a major factor in hiring decisions. But here's the part that no one talks about. The very systems that decide who gets to be considered qualified are built on biases. That means people from certain backgrounds don't even get a chance to show they are qualified. So are we really making decisions based on merit, or are we just reinforcing old stereotypes? Let's hear from Garrison Hayes.
Doesn't DEI kind of clash with the whole concept of hiring based on merit? Okay, let's talk about it. There are so many assumptions packed into this question, but I will assume that it was asked in good faith and answer it as such. No. Hiring a non-male, non-white candidate does not clash with the concept of merit, because white men don't have a monopoly on being qualified. Take as much time as you need with that one. At the heart of your question is an assumption that black people, women, queer folks, all the groups considered diverse, that they are, for one reason or another, less worthy, and therefore could only have gotten the job because of their identity and not because they earned it. But not only is that wrong, it's insane. And I have some potentially disturbing news for you. All throughout American history, the only group of people to consistently get jobs they didn't deserve because they were the right race or the right gender were white men. In fact, decades of research found that black women and black men have to be overqualified to even be considered for higher status jobs, while researchers found that white men consistently benefited the most from nepotism. What all of this means is that a diverse, equitable, and inclusive hiring process may in fact be the only way to hire based on merit.
As Garrison Hayes puts it, meritocracy is a smokescreen for the old power structures. The truth is, when hiring systems only reward the traditional definition of qualified, we're missing a lot of untapped potential, especially from historically marginalized groups. So the question is, are we truly hiring the best person, or just one that fits the mold of the current structures? Think about it.
So your book, of course, is The Tyranny of Merit. And it almost sounds a little bit counterintuitive. If you're me sitting in, class-ridden Britain, you look at the United States and you think, wow, it's not about class there, it's about merit. And if you try hard, you can succeed. But you're saying that now is a false narrative, that class is one thing, but also meritocracy is not what it used to be. Tell me how you analyze the reality in that regard.
Right. There are two problems, Christiane. One of them is that we don't live up to the meritocratic principles we profess. At Ivy League universities in the US, for example, despite generous financial assistance for students from poor families, still, there are more students in these places from the top 1% than from the entire bottom half of the country combined. So the opportunity to rise, individual mobility, which is one of the great promises of the American dream that has attracted people around the world, doesn't quite fit the facts on the ground. It's harder to rise in the US and in Britain than in many other places, many European countries, than in Canada. That's one problem. But there's a deeper problem, which is the meritocratic ideal that if you work hard, you can rise, you can overcome the inequality we've experienced in recent decades through individual mobility. That ideal is flawed, at least so I try to argue in the book. It's corrosive of the common good because it leads the successful, those who land on top, to believe that their success is their own doing and that they therefore deserve the bounty the market bestows on them, and by implication, that those on the bottom must deserve their fate as well. And this set of attitudes, these attitudes towards success that have accompanied the growing inequality of recent decades, this, I think, accounts for the deep resentments and anger and sense of grievance by many working people who have fueled the populist authoritarian backlash against mainstream parties and governing elites.
Now, let's talk about DEI. That's diversity, equity, and inclusion for those of you who have somehow avoided hearing it in every board meeting, news outlet, or from your company this year. But DEI isn't just a box to tick off. It's about creating a level playing field. And when we talk about creating a truly inclusive workplace, DEI is essential. Here's the truth. Companies that invest in DE&I see results. For example, according to a report from HRMorning, businesses with strong DEI strategies show higher employee satisfaction, better productivity, and improved retention. DEI isn't just good for people, it's good for your business. But wait, there's a lot of pushback. Some argue that DEI compromises the integrity of merit-based hiring, that it's about lowering standards and promoting quotas. But guess what? It's not about lowering standards. It's about creating an environment where people from all backgrounds have an equal opportunity to thrive.
The concept of a meritocracy goes back centuries. However, it took off in America in the 1950s due to dissatisfaction with an inept yet excessively wealthy aristocracy. In a quest to diversify the elite and increase social mobility for the working class, a group of reformers came together and decided that society must offer enough opportunity for talent to combine with effort so that anyone could rise to the top. However, 1950s America was consumed by racism and segregation. Black and Native American children were not taught with white children, often had less access to resources, and were schooled in substandard buildings. Nevertheless, the term meritocracy took hold, and society embraced merit as the key way to unlocking the American dream. So what is your reaction, just off the bat?
You know, if you have a connection between race and class, let's say, and you exacerbate economic inequality, you're going to harm people of color, even if you also benefit some people of color whom you admit, unless you're either super talented or super lucky. If you're outside of the elite, probably hard work is not going to be enough. The new meritocrats who had themselves gotten ahead by being good in school and good at tests had an almost unlimited appetite for educating their children and an incredible capacity to do so. And so today's meritocrats, they spend resources on training their kids that nobody else in society can match. If you go to the average public school in America today, probably about $12,000 to $15,000 a year is spent on educating you per child. If you go to one of the Forbes top 20 private schools, probably about $75,000 is spent per child per year on educating kids. And so it's not just poor people who can't keep up with today's elite, it's the middle class.
As part of this journey, I've been trying to understand why we rely on tests so much and what they're actually measuring.
Our meritocracy, because it's based on competition, worships superiority rather than excellence. And so the way in which they measure people's whatever merit is not neutral, particularly as between white people and black people. If you have resources to hire people whose job it is to teach your kids how to do well at the tests, you know, they're going to do really well at the test. So it's not just a matter of outputs, but also inputs. What chances did you have? And importantly, will society commit to giving everybody meaningful opportunity?
So why does meritocracy still dominate hiring practices today, even though it doesn't work as advertised? The reality is that meritocracy only works in ideal conditions where everyone has the same access to opportunities. And in the real world, that's just not the case. Let's take a look at CEOs who favor merit over DEI, like Trump's recent stance on hiring. He claims that meritocracy is the solution for hiring top talent. But guess what? The system he's promoting is already broken.
Okay, we'll do that for Maryland. We'll take this. To further expand opportunity, I'm taking a bold action to reform the federal workforce. Today, I'll sign an executive order that directs the federal government to replace outdated and really outdated, it's called degree-based hiring with skill-based hiring. So we want it based on skill. The federal government will no longer be narrowly focused on where you went to school, but the skills and the talents that you bring to the job. We want that skill to be there. We want it based on merit. We've looked at merit for a long time, and we've been able to get that done.
Trump and other leaders talk a big game about merit, but let's be real. What's actually happening is that these leaders are choosing comfort over change. They want to stick to the old ways of doing things, even if it means excluding potential based on outdated assumptions. Now, I know what you're thinking. So what should we do about this? It's simple. We need to rethink the way we hire. We need to value people beyond their resumes, stop using the same old metrics of what makes someone qualified, and start recognizing the value of different lived experiences. We're not saying to throw out merit altogether. We're saying that it's time to redefine it. It's time to create a more inclusive process that values skills, experience, and diverse backgrounds. The future of work is about making room for people and ideas that have been overlooked for too long. Let's explore that in this video.
So the reason why I have you here today is because I'm exploring this question of, is meritocracy a myth? Here we have a game called Rigged, and I think this can help us illustrate whether it's just ability and effort that allows you to get successful. The object of the game is to get to Glad You Asked University. Look how beautiful that is. There are two different sides to the board game. So we have Pleasantville on that end, and then we have Smallville over here. So I'm going to have you pull a card to determine essentially what your fate is. Are you guys ready to play?
I'm ready.
All right. My card says home. You come from a two-parent middle-class household. Action. Move 2 steps forward at Pleasantville.
Your mom is a food service worker and your dad is a cab driver. Go start at Smallville.
You come from a low-income household, and I start from the start at Smallville.
Both of my parents are lawyers, and guess how far I get to move on this path? I get to move 5 steps forward at Pleasantville. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
You've been selected for the honor roll. Advance 3 steps.
So you got an opportunity.
You have won a scholarship for being Athlete of the Year.
You gotta be kidding me. He did not go to pre-K, pay $15,000 and skip a turn? Bill de Blasio, where you at? I'm already almost cooked.
Serendipity. Your teacher recommends you for a gifted and talented program that you test into. Collect $10,000.
You inherit $40,000 from your distant uncle. Take the next ladder. Oh my God. I'm enjoying this ride.
I can tell who designed this game. Your big brother was shot.
Well,
Wow, Jesus. You missed 2 weeks of school for bereavement to pay the bank $10,000.
jeez.
That's intense.
Yeah,
You can't do your homework because the Wi-Fi is out. Pay $5,000.
that's hard.
I have done stories on that.
Yeah. You start to doubt your abilities as a student in middle school, so you begin to act out, take the next detour.
So you just gotta...
Nothing's working out, you know? I mean, this is what happens when you're watching your kid siblings at night and your mom's missing work and you're tired when you get to school, you know? And then you talk back to your teachers and then you can't escape old Smallville.
All right.
Fabio's about to win.
She really
2
is.
steps. Wow. I think you guys need to clap for me. Thank you so much. So, is this game fair? Like, do you think this was
Obviously
fair?
not. Obviously not.
Why not?
Because we lost.
Clearly. No, I mean, just by the fact that certain people get to start way farther ahead means that it can't be fair.
Our positions are also exactly following our family wealth.
You can't escape your neighborhood, like no matter what you do, the odds are just stacked against you. This is incredibly frustrating.
So my question is, why is America so obsessed with merit? Why is it such a huge part of our country's fabric?
So, what can companies do right now? First, they need to educate their hiring managers on unconscious bias. They also need to start using tools that assess potential rather than focusing on experience, and hire for diversity, not just because it's the right thing to do, but because it will make your business stronger. In the long run, companies that embrace DEI frameworks are going to be the innovative leaders of tomorrow. It's simple. Diverse teams perform better, are more creative, and drive higher profits. And that's backed by data. As we start pushing past this outdated meritocracy debate, we're going to see a rise in organizations that not only hire for skill, but evaluate talent from all backgrounds, creating truly equitable workplaces. And if you don't believe me, just look at the data. Companies with more diverse leadership outperform their less diverse counterparts. So stop asking if merit-based hiring is the way forward and ask, how can we change the system to work for everyone? And to wrap things up, the problem with merit-based hiring isn't merit itself. The problem is the systems we've built that keep some people from ever having the chance to show their merit. It's time to rethink the way we approach hiring, embracing diversity and equity while still valuing skills and performance. Thanks for tuning in to this week's Future of Work Weekly Report. Remember, the future of work isn't about sticking to old systems. It's about fixing them so everyone has a fair shot. See you next time.